Hey, welcome! Today, we are diving into the story of a really powerful, really versatile drug. You've probably never heard of it, but it's working behind the scenes protecting animals all over the world. And believe me, it's a story of some pretty clever science with some really surprising twists.
So let me ask you this. What do dogs, cats, and camels have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, right? I mean, what on earth could connect our pets with the ships of the desert? Well, the answer is actually way more important than you'd think.
And there it is. The common thread is a single, incredibly powerful medication that can take on some of their worst, most persistent problems. It's called Moxidectin, and its story is just a fantastic example of smart, targeted science.
Okay, so before we get to know our hero, we really need to understand the villains of this story. And for that, we have to step into the huge and, frankly, pretty unpleasant world of parasites.
Think about it. From the dogs sleeping at the foot of your bed to the livestock that help feed us, mammals everywhere are under constant attack from these unwanted guests. We're talking about everything from tiny mites that cause horrible skin conditions like mange to the deadly threat of heartworm and, of course, a whole army of ticks, lice, and internal worms. It is a massive global problem.
And that, right there, is where Moxidectin steps onto the stage. It's one of the most important weapons in the veterinary arsenal against this huge range of parasites.
So what is this stuff? Moxidectin is part of a powerhouse family of drugs called macrocyclic lactones. You can basically think of them as neurological weapons that are designed to target invertebrates specifically. It's used all over the globe to treat parasites both inside the body, like worms, and outside the body, like mites and lice.
Now, you might have heard of its cousin, ivermectin, which is a bit more famous. They're in the same family, but Moxidectin has this really key difference. It's more lipophilic. All that means is it's better at dissolving in fat. And this is a huge advantage. It lets the drug get stored in an animal's fatty tissues, which creates this long-lasting, built-in reservoir of parasite-fighting power. So you get longer protection from just a single dose.
So how does it actually do its job? Well, think of Moxidectin like a master key. It's a key designed for a very specific lock that's only found on a parasite's nerve and muscle cells. So it finds these locks, they're called chloride ion channels, it binds to them, and it forces them wide open. This just floods the parasite system, completely short-circuiting its entire nervous system. And the result? Total paralysis and, well, death for the parasite. It is an incredibly slick and effective shutdown sequence.
But, it's one thing for me to say it's effective. How do we actually know? This is where we need to look at the cold, hard evidence and really put Moxidectin's reputation to the test. The information we're digging into today comes from what's called a systematic review. And this isn't just one single study, it's more like a study of studies. Researchers went through decades of research, sifted through everything, and pulled together only the best, highest quality evidence into one super powerful analysis.
And the scale of this thing was really impressive. They started with over 200 different papers and narrowed it all down to the 35 strongest, most rigorous studies they could find.
And this review covered a huge range of animals too. Everything from house cats to cattle, in total 13 different species of mammals.
And get this, it was incredibly comprehensive, pulling together data from almost 2 decades of scientific work. So the point is, the results we're about to look at, they are built on a rock-solid foundation.
So after all of that intense analysis, what did the science actually say? Let's take a look at Moxidectin's report card.
And it just makes sense to start with man's best friend, right? Dogs can suffer from so many different parasitic diseases, and Moxidectin has been tested against a whole lot of them.
This chart just illustrates its power perfectly. It shows how it works against a really nasty skin disease in dogs that's caused by mites. Just a topical treatment of Moxidectin was able to knock down the mite count by almost 95% over 12 weeks. Now, for comparison, a leading oral drug got a 100% reduction. But this just shows you how incredibly effective a simple spot-on treatment can be for a really painful and stubborn problem.
And we're not just talking about skin mites. When you look at one of the deadliest dog parasites out there, heartworm, Moxidectin proved to be an absolute powerhouse. It achieved over 99% reduction in the circulating larvae in just 1 week after treatment. That's incredible.
What about our feline friends? Well, the results are just as impressive. Cats, as you might know, often get those really irritating ear mites. One major study found that a topical Moxidectin treatment was over 98% effective at clearing up those infestations within 2 months. And the success story just keeps going when we look at livestock. The results here are consistently amazing. We're seeing studies showing 100% efficacy against warblefly in cattle, 100% against sarcoptic mange in sheep, and 100% against mites in buffalo. Time and again, Moxidectin delivers powerful and often really fast results.
Okay, so this is the question that I'm sure is on your mind. A drug that can paralyze and kill parasites this effectively, it's got to be pretty potent, right? So the big question is it safe for the very animals it's designed to protect? Well, that systematic review gives us a really clear answer. The researchers concluded that, yeah, adverse reactions were reported in a small percentage of animals across all 35 studies, but, and this is the key part, they were almost always mild and temporary, and they just resolved on their own without needing any extra treatment.
So Moxidectin is clearly a safe and effective tool for our pets and for farm animals. But you know what? The story doesn't end there. Researchers are now starting to look toward a new and really challenging frontier: wildlife.
See, parasites don't care if an animal is domestic or wild. Sarcoptic mange, for example, can completely devastate populations of wombats and even endangered foxes. And while Moxidectin shows huge promise, it has been studied in a few species like wombats, there's this big knowledge gap. We just don't have enough data on how to use it safely and effectively across the huge spectrum of wild animals out there.
And this, right here, is the key takeaway from the review's conclusion. The researchers basically put out a direct call to action to the entire scientific community, saying, we need more studies. We have to figure out how this powerful tool can be used to help vulnerable animals in the wild.
And this brings us to one last, really thought-provoking question. We started this journey with pets and livestock, but the potential here is just so much bigger. Could this reliable parasite fighter, one that's already trusted in vet clinics everywhere, become a critical tool for conservationists on the front lines, helping to save entire species from the awful impact of disease? Well, the science certainly suggests it's a future worth looking into.